Hello everyone. So in this video, I want to do a review for a monitor that I think deserves some attention, especially if you're looking for a budget-friendly 2K high refresh rate monitor for either gaming or office purpose. And icing on the cake is that this monitor also uses IPS panel, so it's got a great viewing angle coverage. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to flip my camera over and we'll take a look at the monitor on its hardware levels, and then I'm going to tell you things that I really love about this monitor, and then at the end, things that I think could be improved for this monitor. Okay, so let's get started. And what you see here is a monitor made by a company called AOPEN. Okay, this is the monitor right here. This is the one that we're going to be reviewing. The model number is 27KG3U. Now you don't see AOPEN branding anywhere on the front cover of the box, so you might not know that this is made by AOPEN. And if you're not familiar with the company AOPEN, this is the instructional manual, this is the logo. It is a company, its parent company is actually Acer, okay, which many of you might have known. So an Acer group company. So AOPEN is actually quite popular in Asia because this is like a side brand of Acer that they make more budget-friendly offerings for the mass market. What is really nice about this monitor, the 27KG3U, is look at the specs. Okay, 180 hertz refresh rate, and this is native. Okay, up to 0.5 milliseconds response time, or gray to gray response time, I would think. This monitor is 2K, so WQHD 2560 by 1440, IPS panel. Okay, those are the specs that actually impressed me when I am looking for a budget-friendly high refresh rate monitor for my work setup. So I work from home. This is my office, and I need a. So the company provides me with a laptop, but I need a reliable and good quality main display. So when I do analysis for to process the images, I should have a reliable monitor that I enjoy using, right? So before this, I had a 4K gaming monitor that was 60 hertz refresh rate from MSI. I actually also did a review for that monitor. I mean, 60 hertz refresh rate is kind of outdated in today's standards. Anytime you go out look for a monitor, you want a monitor that's offering at least 100 hertz of refresh rate. Over here, I'm demoing for you. Okay, so this is the monitor specs for this particular monitor. It's a Display 2 that I'm setting up for as the main display. Native resolution, again, it's listed over here. Okay, you guys can see, and the refresh rate is listed over here. So check it out. 60 hertz is again industry standard for lowest refresh rate that it should ever go. But this monitor is able to offer you a native 180 hertz refresh rate, which is again very amazing. Okay, if you haven't used a high refresh rate monitor, the first significant thing you're going to notice is when you set it to a higher refresh rate, the motion of your mouse movement is a lot more smoother. There's no flickering when you move the mouse. If you set it to 60, I'm going to set it to 60 again and hopefully try to show you the flickering from the 60 hertz. And you can immediately tell, okay, it might not be able to show on the video, but you can immediately tell in your brain that the mouse movement is skipping frames and it's jumping around. It's not as smooth when each frame is rendered. Okay, that's because the refresh rate is very low. Now I'm going to change it again just a little bit over to 120 hertz. And when I move my mouse again, okay, my mouse is here, you can see that each of those, because it's got a higher refresh rate, each of those movements is captured and your mouse moves a lot smoother. This is the first thing you're going to notice when you have a higher refresh rate monitor. The second thing you're going to notice with higher refresh rate, and now the higher refresh rate is also very common on smartphones, is that if you scroll through web pages, you go scroll up and down on those pages, you're going to notice that the scoring is a lot more smoother. Okay, on a 60 hertz, when you scroll up and down, it's going to be the same thing as a mouse movement. You're going to notice loose frame or dropped frames when you scroll. And when you have a higher frame rate and you scroll up and down on the web page, the web page scoring is going to be super smooth. It's going to be silky smooth. That's one reason, or that's one benefit. Regardless if you play video games or not, higher refresh rate is going to reduce your eye strain by helping you track whatever movements that you're doing on your mouse better, and also make everything move smoother so your eye is less stressed. That's one important thing for high refresh rate. And again, this is what really surprised me about this monitor, a budget-friendly monitor, okay? So I'm going to show you some other specs. Guess how much I spent on this 180 hertz refresh rate monitor? $169.99. I bought this at my local hardware store. It's called a Micro Center. It's a computer store that I'm lucky to have here in Miami. They offer a lot of, they are like the computer geek version of Best Buy, where you can get all things computer related, a large selection of monitors, build DIY, build your own PC kits, pretty much everything you can think of. You go in there, you're able to find it. And I'm glad that they're offering this monitor at $169. One thing I want to mention is that AOPEN sells the 27KG3U units globally. And the version you need to get is 27KG3U M3B. This is important. The M3B is the higher spec IPS panel with 180 hertz refresh rate. If you get any other besides M3B, even though the model number is the same, you're going to get a much lower quality VA panel with a lower resolution and refresh rate. Refresh rate, not resolution. But so just be really careful of the model you are going to be getting. You're getting 27KG3U-M3B. Another way to tell really quickly is just make sure that manufacturer says this is 180 hertz refresh rate. And it's a IPS panel, of course. The benefit with IPS panel, as you can see, I'm going to move around and you see the viewing angle again for the IPS is really, really great. Now this is, keep in mind, a budget-friendly monitor. $169 nowadays usually won't even give you a VA panel with the same refresh rate, right? Let alone this is the IPS panel. Another great thing about this panel when I first unboxed it and started using it is the color is actually calibrated well. Okay, so out of the box, it is kind of well calibrated. If you have a color calibration software and hardware, you could definitely calibrate it even further to make sure that the color is absolutely accurate. The monitor also offers a built-in speaker. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the back side. Okay, take a look. This is another thing that impressed me, is that even though this is a budget build monitor, look at the design of the back. It does not look cheap at all. This is like a budget monitor with a high-end design. Look at the lines. What really caught my eye is this really cool, again, this really cool line that they put here. This is the heat dispersing area. So you can see there are some holes over here on the back. And you do see the AOPEN logo right here, which is nice. Okay, so it's also got a built-in speaker, which is amazing. So for people who does not have a nice speaker, you definitely use this monitor with the built-in speaker. There is in terms of ports, I'm also impressed. You got 2 HDMI ports here, and you got a 2 display port here. amazing. There are like total 4 ports. So if you have a lot of like consoles, you have laptops, you have your PCs, plug all them in here. You can easily switch them around. This is the audio in jack right there. And impressive $469. The stand is fully metal. Okay, it does look flimsy, but it's actually a full metal stand made with aluminum. It's a 2-piece design. Basically, when you first get it, you put the top piece on the bottom, and then you screw a little screw in here to lock it. And the monitor is removed by a little tab over here. You push the little tab, you can lift the monitor up. Very easy to install and remove. Okay, so again, look at the design of the monitor. The top part is like super thin. Super thin. The only part that's chunky is right here. All the electric components are built inside here. You have a power brick input right here. This is a AC adapter, so it's not a built-in. So the power unit is not built in here. It only transmits power. This is what the AC adapter looks like. Okay, so it's got a 6-foot AC adapter that goes in here, and again, overall, I am just really impressed by this monitor. Refresh rate, now keep in mind, I only use it for work. And if you are looking for a gaming monitor, should you get this monitor? Absolutely. 2K resolution, again, it's not top of the line, but even for me, do occasional gaming, I use 2K. I would choose 2K resolution rather than 4K, because one uses a lot less power to process a 2K, to render 2K resolution. Second, even with my 4080 Super, I game at 4K, but I would rather game at 2K because the difference between 2K and 4K at this point is discernible. Okay, there are not much difference in terms of the resolution. And look at the rendering on this IPS panel. Also, the screen is matte, so great for office use. You can see, you don't see my reflection. If this is a glossy monitor, even at my home office, it's rather filtered light. With the glossy monitor, it's gonna show my reflection a lot more pronounced, which I really don't like. So matte finish, great for office. And again, back to gaming. If you need to game 180 Hertz with a 0.5 second response time with the overdrive on, is definitely pushing the limit in terms of what a budget monitor, gaming monitor can do, right? So I have no doubt if you spend $170, buy this monitor and start gaming at 2K with a native 180 Hz resolution, if your graphic card supports it, okay? With higher frame rate, your graphic card is gonna be working a lot harder, using a lot more power. My suggestion, keep the resolution at 120 to 140 Hertz. You are still going to be very, very happy at that native frame rate and refresh rate, okay? No doubt this monitor is going to be great for a budget gaming monitor setup, okay? So overall, I'm very impressed by this monitor. And I already went through the hardware features. I'm just going to quickly show you guys the manual system. You access the manual here by just pressing this little button. It's a 5-way toggle. So if you press it, it opens this AOPEN manual setup. Over here, you have some quick access OSD options. Okay, right now I have the brightness at 100, and we'll talk about some things that I can nitpick about this monitor later. But I want to show you this at the very end before we go into the nitpicking. This is the manual, and everything is easy access. Okay, you can see all the options here. Gaming, it's got quite a lot of gaming options. I have overdrive turned off because again, I'm using this for work. You have overdrive mode, you have variable refresh rate, which is basically the AMD FreeSync and G-Sync. I also turned off because I actually don't use it for gaming. Refresh rate number, I don't know what this is. If you know, then great. TVR, all those I think are related to the pixel refreshing or whatever, the response time and latency. You also have the option to turn on ultra low latency, which is what they advertise, 0.5 milliseconds response time. Okay, it went out. And yeah, those are the gaming options. And also what's cool is it's got an aim point, so you can turn this on. And I believe it's gonna display something at the center, maybe. Nope. But this is for gaming. So if you have a crosshair here, you don't have to use the in-game, the game provided crosshair. You can just use this. Maybe you're sniping and you don't want to have the sniping zoomed in. You can use that to point at enemies, I would assume. Okay. Picture-wise, a lot of adjustment options. Some are basic, some are actually extensive. Actually, you have the brightness, contrast, of course, a black level boost. Once you have this turned up, you can see the contrast is actually enhanced with this turned up. And I don't need this function, but just showing you guys what this does. You press once to change, you press another time to confirm. Low blue light mode, if you change this as for the reducing the blue light, if you work in the evening, makes you sleep better. I think that's what it's for. ACM, I don't know what it's for. HDR, you have the HDR mode, but I don't ever use that, especially on a sRGB monitor. It's pointless on a low brightness and low contrast monitors such as this IPS panel. Maximum brightness, if you turn it on, okay, it's gonna boost the brightness even more. Okay, but since right now I already have my brightness already turned all the way up, it doesn't really show any difference, but this just instantly turns the brightness to the max. And in terms of color, you can change the gamma setting, you can change the color temperature. Those are the presets. And if you go down, you can do RGB adjustments for the gain and for the offset. And all those are options here. So again, I'm impressed by the amount of options that this monitor provides, especially in the settings. The OSD, we can get the timeout just a little bit longer, so it doesn't really time out that soon. You can turn on the transparency by setting a percentage. You can also lock the OSD if you want. System-wise, those are the input-output options. The constraint, the ratio constraints, and some of those privacy or copyright features is all accessed right here. This is the basic information here that tells you what the current refresh rate is. So right now it's at horizontally 177 kilohertz, vertically 120 hertz. The vertical is the reading that we talk about when the monitor is being used or the refresh rate is being talked about. It's the vertical refresh rate. And you can see I'm using a display DP1 version 1.2. And the reason is now is a good time to talk about the nitpicking of this monitor as a budget high refresh rate IPS 2K resolution monitor. Okay. So again, overall, very impressed. Even though I'm going to talk about the negatives, do not be discouraged because those are nitpicks, not really kind of a downside if you spend $170 on this monitor. The first thing first is it only came with a DisplayPort cable, okay? The DP cable is nice because with the DP cable, I believe you are able to get the native 180 hertz refresh rate. And I think if you use a HDMI cable, I haven't tested because I don't have a HDMI cable to test. You're not going to be able to go to 180 hertz native refresh rate. You might be stuck at 144 or 165. Okay, all right, guys, just a quick add-on comment that I want to make for the 180 hertz refresh rate that I mentioned earlier. I got my HDMI 2.1 cable. Okay, newest standards supports 8K at 60 hertz. And I plugged into my laptop HDMI port for the monitor, and the maximum supported refresh rate, as I suspected, is not 180 hertz on the HDMI cable. So if you use the HDMI cable, the max refresh rate is going to be limited at 144 hertz vertical refresh rate. Okay, So in order to utilize the maximum performance of the refresh rate of this monitor, you will want to use the display port cable that they give you with the monitor to be able to use 180 Hertz. Now, again, as I mentioned, the downside is that most laptops is not going to have a display port input. So the alternative, if you have a laptop, fairly modern one, is to use a USB-C to display port adapter. With that regard, yes, you will be able to use the full 180 Hz refresh rate with the display port to USB-C adapter on your laptop. Okay, so that's one extra comment that I want to make, and let's continue with the review. Okay, that's my assumption, okay, because depending on the version of the HDMI that this monitor supports, I haven't read the spec, you might not be able to go as high as 180 native on HDMI 2.0. If this monitor does support HDMI 2.1, which I'm going to find out today because I'm getting a HDMI 2.1 cable to find out whether it supports native 180 Hz resolution with this monitor. So I will put a text in the description when I get it tested today and before the video comes out. So that's one thing. It's only got a display port cable included, but if you use a laptop, like for example me or for many other people who only use laptops nowadays, they don't have a display port cable. So you are stuck with display port. You have to go out and buy a separate HDMI port to put it on the laptop, as is right here. Okay, so you can only see USB-C cables here. Again, modern days, you have USB-C output, so you can put a USB-C here and convert it to a display port, but that's not the ideal setup. So that's my first nitpick. The second nitpick is that those cables are all very short. This is only a 6-foot cable. For my laptop setup, it's okay, but again, DisplayPort usually is plugged into a PC somewhere on the desk, and your PC is sometimes very far away from your monitor. Okay, so it doesn't make sense to have a very short cable because it might not even able to reach your PC. That's the second thing I want to complain, is the short length of included cables. And also look at this power cable. Okay, I showed you guys briefly the power cable, what it looks like. It's also extremely short, 6 foot. You're not gonna reach anything with this cable. So the cable goes there and it barely reached under my desk, and it ended right here. I literally have to find just a little bit longer of an extension cord to plug it in here, and even though it's still dangling, and look at my other cables, okay? All other cables are long enough for all different kinds of purpose. So that's my second nitpick, is the short length of cables provided. So be prepared to get an extension, either a power outlet extension or a longer cable that you might have to spend money to buy. Okay, so the third nitpick, again, this is pertaining to all the IPS panels, is that the brightness of the monitor the brightness output is rather limited. So compared to my OLED, which is my main personal use monitor downstairs, which I did a review on, the OLED is able to output an incredibly bright or high contrast picture. On the IPS panel, even though I'm showing you here that, you know, the picture looks fine and dandy, but if you compare it with some other options, maybe a VA panel that has a higher brightness output or a OLED with super high contrast, you're gonna immediately notice that the contrast and the brightness of the IPS panel is slightly lower compared to the competitive panel types. But this is a limitation of the IPS panel themselves, is really not a limitation of this particular monitor. So if you're getting an IPS panel monitor, keep in mind it's going to have a slightly lower brightness output and a slightly lower contrast. Okay, so that's the third nitpick, but that's not for this monitor, but IPS panel in general. The fourth one, and that's going to be my last nitpick for this monitor, is that this stand, despite the fact it is a well-made, very solid, two-piece aluminum design, very sturdy as well. It is non-adjustable. The only thing you can adjust is a limited tilt angle up and down. You can see that it sits way too tall on my desk. For most person, to reduce the neck strain, it is better to have something as low as possible on the desk rather than a super high monitor setup. So in that regard, you might need to fix this. Okay, I ordered a monitor stand which is adjustable. I'm gonna clamp my stand on the back and put this monitor as low as I can, but it's gonna be additional cost to get this monitor to a adjustable stand and be able to adjust to the liking of your preference. So that's my last nitpick for this monitor. Okay, and with that said, those are all the small nitpicks that I have for this monitor. At the very end, I also want to show you guys, or not show you guys, but just to tell you that the color calibration, again, as I mentioned at very early, is right off the box amazing. It's well calibrated, let's just say that. And also the color uniformity on this panel is also very, very good. When I tested it using the depth pixel test on the website, I do not see any huge variations in terms of the colors displayed on the monitor, the RGB colors, as well as the black and the white. In terms of the light leak, there is a slight amount of light bleed around this area when you viewed in a pitch black room on a black background. And the light bleed is a yellowish color, which is actually less annoying than some other IPS panels which has a blue-purple tint. That tint is more annoying than the yellow color that this monitor, presents, which I think, again, it's really a plus for this monitor because I think the light bleed is controlled very, very well. Color uniformity is great. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about this monitor. I'm overall very impressed for what nowadays $170 could get you. A high refresh rate IPS panel monitor with fast response time. And again, personally, I think this monitor is gonna be a great budget gaming monitor at 2K resolution, 180 Hertz refresh rate. You can probably also try to use this for the console as well. And again, with that high refresh rate, you're gonna really enjoy it. Limitations of the low brightness and low contrast is that do not use this at a bright room or a bright area where you're gonna be having this monitor with a bright window on your back. And that's gonna, that's gonna really put you off and that's gonna be the same for many other monitors. If you have a really bright, background, that's just not good. So try to avoid it, and you're gonna be really loving this monitor. Okay. Again, I hope you guys found this video helpful. Model number is, just to show you guys again, 27KG3U M3. Make sure you get the M3, not any other suffix of this monitor. Okay, and yeah, you're gonna absolutely love this monitor for $170. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section down below, and I would be happy to answer for you. And once again, thank you so much guys for watching. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Take care.